I still remember the exact moment she dropped the bomb. We were sitting at the kitchen table, the morning sun streaming through the blinds, and Claire, my wife of 6 years, looked at me with that unreadable expression she perfected over the years. Then she said it, like it was the most casual sentence in the world. "I'm pregnant, but I need a DNA test to know if it's yours or Kyle's." The words didn't just stun me. They punched me in the chest. Time seemed to slow down. I gripped my coffee mug so tightly that my knuckles went white. I couldn't process it at first. Kyle, my best friend, the guy I trusted with everything. And now, he might be the father of my child. The betrayal felt like a knife twisting in my gut, sharp, cold, and unrelenting. I'm Ethan, 37. I run a small tech business in Austin, Texas, and pride myself on being reliable, steady, and loyal. The kind of man who keeps promises, who shows up, who fights for his family. Claire was my opposite. Impulsive, magnetic, reckless with her charm, and devastatingly manipulative. Together, we had built a life that, on the surface, looked perfect. But underneath, I had started noticing cracks. Late nights that weren't explained, texts she guarded like treasure, and a distance in her eyes that chilled me more than any cold morning. It all clicked now. The late nights, the excuses, the subtle lies, they weren't just lapses or mistakes. They were the building blocks of betrayal I had ignored, too trusting, too blind to see coming. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but the words lodged in my throat. Claire's gaze was steady, almost smug, as if she had rehearsed this moment for months. "You don't get to react yet," she added, leaning back in her chair, "until you accept the reality that I might have made a different choice, someone else." I sat there, numb, watching the woman I had loved, the woman I had envisioned a lifetime with, reduce our years together to a single question of ownership and doubt. She wasn't remorseful, not even a trace. She was calculating, deliberate, and painfully honest. The betrayal wasn't messy. It was clinical. Then there was Kyle, my friend, my confidant, the person I had trusted to celebrate milestones with me, to back me up in arguments, to stand by me when life got messy. And now, he might be the father of my unborn child. My chest tightened, my stomach churned, and a hollow sense of isolation settled over me. Natalie, Claire's younger sister, was staying with us at the time. She had moved in temporarily after breaking off a long-term relationship, and at first I thought her presence would be distracting, annoying even. But as I sat there, staring at Claire, it was Natalie's quiet gaze from across the table that grounded me. Her expression wasn't judgmental. It wasn't shocked. It was real, concerned, honest. She didn't speak, but the way she looked at me said, "You deserve better. Don't let this break you." The contrast was almost unbearable. Claire's cold, calculating betrayal versus Natalie's quiet, human empathy. And in that moment, I realized that the next steps, whatever they were, would define not just my marriage, but every part of my life that I thought was safe. The following days were a haze of disbelief, anger, and sleepless nights. I replayed Claire's words over and over. "I need a DNA test to know if it's yours or Kyle's." Each repetition tightened the knot in my chest, made my head pound, and made every memory of our marriage feel tainted. I kept asking myself how I had missed the signs, how I had been so blind to the subtle, creeping cracks that had now turned into a chasm of betrayal. Claire, of course, acted like nothing had changed. She moved through the house with an eerie normalcy, sipping her coffee, scrolling on her phone, occasionally dropping casual remarks about the baby's future or how she wanted everything organized. Her tone was calm, almost clinical, and it made my blood boil. She wasn't apologetic. She wasn't regretful. She was proud, poised, and disturbingly matter-of-fact. The betrayal wasn't messy. It was strategic. Meanwhile, Natalie became my lifeline. She noticed my quiet withdrawal, the way my jaw tightened when Claire spoke, the hollow look in my eyes. She didn't try to fix things or give unsolicited advice. She just existed as a counterweight to the storm. One evening, she came into the kitchen while I was cleaning up after dinner and said, "Ethan, you've always been too good to be treated like this. Don't forget who you are." Her words were simple, but they hit harder than any lecture or confrontation could. I felt a flicker of clarity. a reminder that I wasn't powerless, that I had choices even in the face of betrayal. And then Kyle entered the picture. Not physically, not yet, but in every text, every memory, every imagined confrontation. My mind went through endless scenarios. Confront him, demand answers, unleash my anger, or retreat and let Claire face the consequences alone. The tension was unbearable. I knew that confronting Kyle would change everything. It could destroy him, Claire, our relationships, or even what little family peace remained. But doing nothing felt like self-betrayal. Claire's casual cruelty became a backdrop to my days. At work, I found it hard to focus. At the gym, my usual composure slipped. I replayed every moment of intimacy, every argument, every shared laugh, now tainted by doubt. And every time I saw Natalie, I felt the contrast sharper. Here was someone who saw me, who valued me, who made me feel alive again, versus the woman who had orchestrated a betrayal so precise it could have been written like a script. Finally, the day of the first test arrived. The clinic was quiet, sterile, and suffocating. Claire walked in with her usual composure, like she was attending a routine appointment, while I felt my stomach twist into knots. Natalie stayed behind, waiting in the lobby, a silent pillar of support. The contrast couldn't have been starker. Claire, cold and detached, versus Natalie, warm and human. I realized, in that moment, that no matter the results, my life was already shifting. The truth was no longer just about biology. It was about integrity, trust, and reclaiming myself in the shadow of betrayal. The waiting room felt like a battlefield. Every tick of the clock was a reminder of the chaos Claire had created, the betrayal that had invaded every corner of my life. I sat there, hands clenched, Natalie beside me, silent but unwavering. Her presence grounded me, reminded me that even in the face of deceit, there were people who could see my worth. Claire walked in shortly after, clipboard in hand, her expression neutral, almost smug. "Ready?" she asked, as if this were some casual formality rather than a revelation of a life-altering truth. I swallowed hard, my throat dry, and nodded. The nurse called us in, and the tension became unbearable. Every step, every heartbeat, screamed in my ears. I thought about Kyle, about betrayal, about the years I had invested in a marriage that now felt like a carefully constructed illusion. When the results finally came, the air felt electric. Claire's composure remained intact, but I could see the slightest tension in her jaw. I opened the envelope with trembling hands, my eyes scanning for words that could either shatter or free me. And then I read them. The truth hit like a tidal wave. The baby was mine. Every calculation, every doubt, every late-night worry that had tormented me evaporated in an instant. The relief was overwhelming, but it was tempered by the realization of how close I had come to losing everything. Not just the certainty of my child, but my own sense of self. Claire didn't react the way I expected. There was no apology, no relief, no sign of guilt. She simply exhaled, a subtle tightening of her shoulders, as if the weight of her own manipulations had finally caught up to her. The smugness was gone, replaced by a fragile, almost human moment of recognition. Her power over me was gone. She had underestimated the depth of my resilience, the support of those who truly cared for me. Natalie leaned over, squeezing my hand. Her eyes met mine, filled with pride, understanding, and something I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years, hope. "You did it," she whispered. "You stayed strong." I realized she wasn't just congratulating me on the DNA results. She was acknowledging that I had reclaimed control over my life, that I had survived betrayal, and that I could still find joy, trust, and love even after being hurt so deeply. In the days that followed, I made choices that prioritized my dignity and well-being. Claire faded into the background of our lives, leaving a trail of lessons learned and boundaries redrawn. Natalie remained, not as a replacement, not as a quick fix, but as a reminder that human connection, authenticity, and kindness were stronger than deception. I learned that day that betrayal, no matter how calculated, can never define the person it targets. Claire's confession could have destroyed me, but instead, it became a catalyst, a painful, infuriating catalyst that reminded me who I was, what I deserved, and how to reclaim my life. And as I held my child for the first time, feeling the steady heartbeat against my chest, I knew something essential had changed. I had survived, and I had won, not because of her, not because of Kyle, but because I refused to let their choices dictate my worth.